Hey everyone, starting in about 6 minutes. Just let me know if you can hear me. Hey everyone, starting in about 6 minutes. Just let me know if you can hear me. Awesome, glad you can hear me. Good to see you guys. Good to see you, Tony. First up, Tracy, Susan, Pigeon River, Rolf, Robin, Hannah, Anne, Susan, and Kevin. Great to see you all. So I'm just getting the social media ready. If you guys have any social media, if you're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or whatever else there is, do me a favor and copy this link and share it out. I'm going to do the same thing. Just let everyone on social media know we're going live in 5 minutes. Two minutes, guys. All right. We've got 1 minute and 24 seconds. I just sent everything out on social media. I sent the newsletter out just to the people that signed up for it. So hopefully everyone's going to come in and we're going to be able to kick off. Stuart Braithwaite, good to see you. Kia ora. from New Zealand. Who else we got has come in here while I've been social mediaing? Andrew Nichols, good to see you. Susan, Tracy, I said hi to Susan and Tracy already. Tom, good to see you. Nature, good to see you there. David Holstock, good to see you there, buddy. Dana Carr, great to see you in here. Dojo, nice to see you. Derek Lees. All right, guys, 32 seconds, 31 seconds, 30 seconds. All right, we're counting down pretty soon. And then we're going to do our kickoff. Is everyone ready to do the countdown with me? By the way, I'm curious, does anybody do the countdown with me? Or I'm just doing this alone. I'm curious if this is a ritual or if it's just me. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off. And here we are, guys. Episode number 52 of Live from Lockdown. I'm glad you could come and join us. So many familiar faces, well, at least names, handles there. 52 weeks of this. Now, we've been on lockdown for more than a year, but this is a year's worth of LFLs. So here we are, number 52. Can you believe it? So for those of you who are regulars, it's great to see you. Once again, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome to our family. And if you're new, introduce yourself there in the chat and say hi to everybody. It's the friendliest bunch of people on the internet, I would probably say. And so this is the Cafe crew from YouTube and the Cafe crew from photoshopcafe.com. We're all coming together. And let me know too in the comments, guys, say, hey, you're part of the newsletter and the website, or you're part of YouTube. Really, it's all one Cafe crew. We're just in different places. And it's so good to have you. I'm also going to be streaming in the future. We're going to be doing this on Facebook and Twitter as well. So what we're going to do is basically we're all just going to be here on YouTube, but we'll also stream on those other channels. So I'm curious what you guys prefer as your favorite channel. Let me know there as well. And for those of you who just joined us and are like, what is all this and why is this a countdown? So basically we do the countdown because we start at 1 p.m. Pacific time. And it takes a little while. I send out a newsletter. We have a list that people have signed up specifically to be notified when we do these streams. And the reason I do it that way is because YouTube used to send out emails to everybody, but it doesn't anymore. So I send them out on a list. And in a second, I'll tell you how to join that list. And then, so basically I do that and then I share it on social media, and it takes a little while for everybody to gather here. Like I'm looking at right now we have over 100 people. It takes time for us just to kind of get there. And that's why we do that. That's what that countdown timer is. It's coming down to 1 o'clock. The chat is live before then. So when we go about, I don't know, maybe half an hour to 15 minutes early, that chat will start and you guys can jump in, and a lot of people do, and just kind of hang out and have some community time, because really that's what we're doing here. So anyway, 52 weeks of this, and I've got some fun stuff in store for you today. We're going to look at some Photoshop preferences, and then I've got some cool things. I think we're going to do some fix my photo and maybe spend the majority of the time there. Let's just kind of see how things go, because we kind of do things very casual here. And by the way, this is sponsored by nobody, so I can say whatever I want and we can do whatever we want. But we're good, responsible people, so we don't get too crazy. So it's not going to turn into Jim Cramer where I start honking horns and hooting things. Well, maybe I should. Maybe I should make it into, like... Matt, Photoshop starts now! I don't know. You guys probably wouldn't like that. My sense of humor is bad enough as it is. All right, great. So, before we jump in, I'm just going to pop my glasses on and let's get us into this screen so everyone can see my screen here. And of course, I'm covering up episode number 52. Want to make sure we do that. Good to see you, Chris Bacon from Liverpool, London. Liverpool, England. It's a different city. And great soccer team. At least they used to have a great soccer team. Are they still good, Liverpool? Did they wear blue if I remember, or are they red? I think Liverpool's red, and yeah, I'm gonna get in trouble, so I'm not gonna say anymore. All right, so what we're doing here is for those of you who signed up for the notifications, this is how you do it. You just go under the free tutorials. This is at photoshopcafe.com, by the way, and this is specifically just for the mailing list for Live from Lockdown. So if you don't do this, I won't send you emails. So choose free tutorials and then just choose live streams. And under the live streams, there are, you'll see, this is an archive of all the live streams. The reason I'm showing you this is if you click on the newest one, you're going to see, it's slow because I'm streaming at the same time, so things take a second. But if you go down there, yeah, you'll see it there. But there's a sign-up box. Put your email address in there and you turn on live streams there, which is by default. And then you'll be on the email. So when you hear about the email, hey guys, I sent out the email. So about 15 minutes before we go live, I start sending the email. MailChimp takes a little time to get it. So some people get it right away. Some people it might take 10 minutes or 15 minutes. That's why we start 15 minutes early. All right, enough talk. Why don't we just jump in and start looking? I thought it would, be kind of fun to talk about the preferences inside of Photoshop. So it's one of those things we all know exist, and some of us maybe know what some of the settings do, and some of us don't. But we're basically, if you're, I believe in Windows, you're going to choose the Photoshop icon or something. It's there. I know on Mac, it's under Photoshop Preferences. Maybe it's under File Preferences on Windows. It used to be. Maybe it's in Photoshop Preferences now. Let me know, guys. David's saying, my common sensible approach, greatly appreciated. No need for the literal bells and whistles. See what we're talking about. So David does not want us to turn into the Jim Cramer Mad Money show. Okay, I can go with that because I don't have the energy to do that. All right, so under Preferences, you'll see you can choose all these different categories of preferences. So this is just like a shortcut to get to different preferences. Even Camera Raw preferences are in here. And guys, I did that supersize thing and people were like, this is Bridge, this is Camera Raw, it's not Photoshop. Bridge and Camera Raw are part of Photoshop. They're integrated in Photoshop. They came with Photoshop first. They still come with Photoshop. So yeah. Anyway, so rather than going into the individual ones here, we're just going to choose General. And it's going to start in General. Now notice all the other preferences here. So I could have gone into any of those and then started there. And all it's going to do is just going to start. So why don't we just start from the top? What did David say? Oh, yes. Okay. A little delay there. So some of the comments. I'm keeping my eyes on the comments, by the way, guys. And unfortunately, Bruce can't make it this week. He's getting his second shot of his COVID vaccination. Yay. Good for Bruce. Next week, I get my second shot. Super excited. All right, so what we're going to do here is if you look under the preferences, there's some different options. All right, so this is pretty much where you set up everything in Photoshop. You know, when you open up a dialog box and something is ticked or not ticked or checked or not checked, or this is basically what the preferences are, is telling Photoshop, hey, what do we want to set up as the defaults? Also, there's some other things. So the color picker, we've got the Apple or the Adobe color picker. That's when we choose color picker. Let me just show you this just in case you care. And then you choose on the color picker here. If you pick up the Apple one, you get this strange color picker. I don't know. Maybe some people want to choose a colored pencil. It's horrible. Don't do it. Let's go into preferences and we're going to go back. And this is, we're going to use the Adobe one. Don't worry, we're not going through everything, but just let me show you what it did. And now we click, there's the regular color picker. Okay. Play a practical joke on somebody, change it to the Apple one, and that'll be fun. April Fool's joke. April Fool's Day is already gone, but anyway. So we can do that. We can change, in the HUD when we do the color picker. We can change the size of it. There's a color wheel. So there's different options that we can do here. And same with interpolation. So, in fact, I'm going to go under here, and if we look at this, we've got nearest neighbor by cubic. So if any of you have seen the settings that I do on rescaling or resizing images, I've got a lot of videos on that, so check out my tutorials on that. But the one that's missing here is the one that I use all the time. So just keep it on automatic. Let me just show you the one I use all the time. So we choose image size. And if we go into here, the one I use is Preserve Details 2.0. They haven't added it in preferences yet for some weird reason. So that's the one that I like to use. Unfortunately, some of these are sticky. So the dialog boxes will save these preferences. Now, these are the other options that were available. Automatic is the one that was set by default. So that's what setting those preferences does. Another thing about preferences, if you ever reset your preferences, you've heard people say that, hey, reset your preferences, it fixes things. In fact, it does. So when you start Photoshop, what you do is you hold down the Avengers, and I think you guys know what the Avengers are. Option, Command, Shift. That's something I've been saying for a while here, and that's just all the 3 modifier keys. There's more Avengers than 3, but hold all of those down, and then when you click on the Photoshop icon to launch Photoshop by holding them down, it'll give you the option, which is that's not going to happen here because I'm already going. Whoa, did I just quit everything? No, I didn't. Okay, I just lost everything. That was weird. Hang on a sec. Let me see if you guys are still here. Whew. All right, you're still there. Okay, so when I did that, everything just disappeared from my computer. So don't experiment with that. Okay, so basically what you do is when you hold that down, Photoshop starts, and then a little dialog box will pop up on Photoshop, and that little dialog box will say Reset Preferences. And you choose yes. And what that will do is it will set all of these to the factory settings, and it will also clear out all the other things you might have added, some presets and different things like that. But it fixes most of the problems in Photoshop. A lot of the time, things are user error. So you go to preference, like that color strip. It's like, Photoshop's broken. The color picker's not right. It was just a preference that you're not used to. And so often that's what happens. So setting preferences will solve that just by putting things back and removing user error. But the other thing it'll do is sometimes a preset can get glitchy and it can kind of hang up the system. And by resetting the prefs, it'll kick that out and that will fix it. So it's not always your fault. And to be honest, most of the time it's not your fault. It's Adobe's fault. It's just to blame Adobe. Although I will admit, even for myself, like 9 times out of 10 when I'm cursing at Photoshop, it's my fault. I've got a little 1 pixel selection active somewhere, and I don't know why my brush strokes are not appearing. Just weird things like that, right? Okay. Anyway, so now that's a good introduction to preferences. Let's look at a couple of things. One of the ones that you can turn off here is if you turn off the auto show home screen. When you open up Photoshop and you get Times Square there with all the stuff, and then you close out the documents and it appears. Let me see if it's going to do it on mine. It probably is not. Let's have a look. I'm not going to save that. Oh, by the way, this is my tutorial coming up next Tuesday. Quick mask tips. There we go. See this big, huge marquee screen, which I'm actually getting used to and I don't mind it now. But if you don't want this to appear and you just want Photoshop, just a blank document, turn that option off. And by the way, you can get to the preferences from here too. So if we go under our preferences, let's choose our general preferences. That's what auto show the home screen will do. If you turn this off, then when you are in a document and you have no document open and you close it, this is what you're going to see. All right. So let's go back to preferences again. And I know a lot of people don't like that, so I'm going to keep it on just because I teach and people need to see it. A new one was added, preset syncing. Check out what we did. I believe it was 2 weeks ago or last week. I can't even keep track anymore. That will sync your presets, but don't turn that on until you watch my other video on the presets because it could give you a whole pile of hurt. Okay, so you've got other things here you can do. Beep when done, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to skip over a lot of these that don't so much matter. Dialog boxes, when you turn those dialog boxes on, it says don't show again, turn that off. And then you're like, man, I wish that would show again. If you hit here, reset all warning dialogues, all of them will appear again, including the annoying tooltips, I believe. I don't know. All right. So the other one is skip transform and placing. When you place something into Photoshop and you choose image place, and then it has those little bounding boxes and you have to hit enter or whatever to commit that before you can use it. If you turn that off, that will not do it. Legacy free transform means you hold down the shift key to scale it. Sorry, the shift key will constrain it. So when you size something, it will go back to how it used to be. You drag it in the corner and it's all oblong and it changes shape. Hold down the shift, it constrains it to a nice square. Now by default it's the other way around. You can switch it that way. Okay, so what else are we going to talk about here? Just important things we might look at. Legacy, new document. So, when you get that new document interface, and by the way, a lot of preferences you have to restart Photoshop for them to take effect. But say we're in here and we choose create new, and well, let's just see that big box, file, new, and we get this big box. It used to work differently. I might need a reset, but let me just see if I can show you this, because this is another one that some people prefer. Use legacy, new document interface, choose file, new, and then you just get this box, how it used to be. I don't really like that big, huge box, so a lot of the time, when I'm doing production work, I'll just change to this. This is how it used to be. This is the old one. So basically, I'm showing you how to make Photoshop old again. No, I don't know. Some people don't like these big marquee things. It's kind of the new thing, make everything huge. So I guess I have to reset for that one. All right, so let's continue. So hopefully this is useful for you guys so far. Now, there's things that nobody I know ever uses, like beep when done. And that was actually useful back in the day, when you would apply a filter and it would take forever. But this could still be useful because Photoshop, I don't know if you guys have noticed, I don't know if it's Photoshop or if it's just we're working on larger files. Things seem to take a lot longer to save. You remember when things saved just like really quick, and now it seems to take forever? So maybe you're doing other things. So if you choose beep when done, when that save is finished, it'll beep. I don't know what the beep sounds like because I've never done it, but that's an option. All right. Themes, color themes. We can go in here, we can change the color, of our screen. This is how it is now. If you want it back how it was in the old days, there it is, or here. Some people prefer that brighter thing. We can do that, plus all the individual, we can change the highlight colors. We can go through and change individual parts of this, so, going in here and changing some of that will work. UI language. UI, let me make it medium. Let's make it bigger. Scaled UI, that'll make it easier for you guys to see. I could go to large, but sometimes the fonts look weird. Now, here's another one that I think I'm going to talk about. When things are dynamic, that means they update as you're working on them. If they're not dynamic, once you let go of the mouse, then it'll update. So if you're having performance on your color sliders and it just feels like it's lagging, if you turn that off, that means you can move your color slider to where you want, and then when you release it, Photoshop will only update once. Because what happens is Photoshop updates constantly, and this is known as caching. We'll look at that in a second. But first, what I'm going to do here is we're going to look under the channels. If we look at channels, let's open an image. Let's just get a recent image here. There's an image, and then we look at the channels, red, green, and blue. Well, why are they black and white? They're black and white because it's easier to work on than actually color. And if we go under the preferences here, and I'm really going to have to pick up the pace on this, show channels in color. If we do that, this is what the channels actually look like: red, green, blue. Put them all together, you get the color. Now they're in black and white because it's easier to see what we're masking. That's why Photoshop does that. Is that new for anybody? Let me know. And by the way, if I say something new that you haven't seen before, you've got to hit the like button. How's that for a good deal? And if I didn't, hit the like button anyway. What it does is it helps us with the algorithm. YouTube algorithm loves to make the hype boil to the top, and anything with substance rely on good people like you to hit the like button so that people see the videos. All right, so show channels in color, and also that will help them show, hey, we're live, and people will join us. And I can see right now, where are we at for likes? We are at 51 likes, and there's almost 200 people watching, so more likes would be awesome, guys. All right, moving on. And by the way, everyone always asks me this. You missed the beginning, you're late, that's okay. This is being recorded, and the replay will happen right after this. The live chat will not be live, but the comment section on YouTube will be live. So you can add comments after the fact, and I will respond to those comments and read them. This happy, exciting, very lively chat only happens during live. So if you're trying to respond to the chat afterwards, everyone's at home sleeping or eating dinner, and we'll be back next week at 1. But you can add a comment, and I'll respond. Moving on. All right. I'm just looking at this. I could probably spend 3 hours going through preferences. Don't worry, I won't. We're gonna zip through them and just pick up some highlights, some interesting ones, the cool ones. I actually did on my Photoshop CC for Digital Photographers title. I actually went through and did it live. I did all the preferences, every single one. Took an hour. All right, so workspace. I think you guys can figure this out. This is the same thing you get when you're up here and you collapse things. And so some of these preferences can also be changed inside of Photoshop. Narrow options bar, turn that on, and that makes the options bar narrow. Let me go back into preferences, and let's just go back to workspace. And once again, some of these things will happen when I start Photoshop. So I don't want to have to restart it to show you that. All right, tools. If you don't like tooltips, turn them off. Tooltips are really useful for teachers. Have you ever seen instructors and they're talking about, okay, I'm now going to grab the polygon lasso tool. And they do that because the tooltips tell them what it is. So sometimes, yeah, I forget what things are as well. So that's what that does, the tooltips. Now, the rich tooltips I don't like. These are these ones. These big animations that happen when you're trying to work. If you like those, good for you. I don't, so I'm going to turn those off. Tooltips are useful, if for nothing else, just to learn the proper names of things. And then, when you hover over something will appear. Gestures, yeah, you're on a trackpad, doesn't matter. Well, actually, there are some gestures on here. They will be enabled because I'm using a Wacom tablet, which I can use as a touch device. All right, moving on. Flick panning is good. Flick panning is when you push it and it just keeps moving. Zoom or scroll wheel is an option. But if you hit the Control Command key and scroll wheel, that will also work. All right, so we're not going to go into all of those. History log, we're not going to look at that, although it's interesting. Look at my tutorials on actions. It's a great way to see what you did. File handling, this is all stuff that can be done. Camera raw preferences here, if you can turn this on or off. We do want to prefer camera raw for raw. I'm just going to move down to performance. Let's get to some of the juicy stuff. Okay, so now that we're in the memory usage, as you can see, I have a lot of memory. I have 140 gigs of RAM. Now, and that's because I'm using the Mac Pro, and I sold one of my legs. That's why I never stand up for it. Fortunately, they let me hold on to an arm. But no, seriously, this is if you want more RAM available for Photoshop. So it could come default at around about 70% or 75%. What you want to do is if you're primary working in Photoshop and you're not working in other apps as much, make a little bit more RAM available. In this case, I've got 100 gigs of RAM. That's more than enough. I've got 40 gigs free, so I could go more if I wanted. But if I'm working on a machine that has less RAM, what you want to do is give yourself enough RAM in Photoshop so that it, is a little bit snappier, but not so much that it starves other programs. So if you're running other programs such as Lightroom at the same time, I wouldn't really probably go about 70%. Now, test it out and see how that works for you. Everyone's system's going to be a little bit different. So there's not a number I can say that you want to set this for. But what I will tell you is don't go above 85%. This is what Adobe recommends. If you go above 85%, you're starting to starve the system of RAM. That means, the operating system is running Photoshop. So instead of Photoshop running faster, it's going to run slower because you're not giving enough RAM to your system. If you want the fastest performance possible in Photoshop, only run Photoshop. Don't run other programs at the same time. Give it about 85% of memory and test it out. And in a second, I'll show you how to test the performance. I'll show you how you can see that. Before I do, I just want to talk about some other settings. So you've got caching. Caching redraws. So when you're working inside of Photoshop and you're doing things, you're working on images, different things like that, what happens is Photoshop is caching or it's redrawing. So that means that, you're painting or whatever, and if the performance is really slow and sluggish, that means Photoshop's not redrawing that as fast. And if you increase that, to draw faster, then what's going to happen is your brush is going to be more responsive, but Photoshop could be slower on other things, because now when you're doing filters on large images, it's refreshing it all the time. And so it having to refresh this thing all the time, and it's going to slow down other performance. So it depends on what you're doing. And also it can do tiles. So it takes the screen, and rather than refreshing everything at once, it refreshes each one of these tiles individually. So if you're working on a tile and you're changing it, only that tile is refreshing. Does that make sense? If you're applying a sharpening filter, all these tiles have to redraw. So you have the ability to change the size of these tiles, make them larger or smaller, or you can increase the cache level. Higher cache level draws faster, more often. Low cache level means it doesn't refresh as often. So when you're doing big filters, camera raw adjustments, things like that. So that's why we have these different options. So if we choose Web UI, notice the cache levels drop to 2. So it's not refreshing as fast. It's using, we can see the different sizes. It's using the small, well, actually the 128K. Yeah, the smallest size tile, because you're working on small images. So it can slowly refresh them, but it's slowly refreshing these little images. History states, by the way, let's just turn that all the way up. And, well, actually, wow, they've turned it up to 1,000. Let's not do 1,000. Let's do 100. And history states is like when you choose undo, like how many of those can you do? So, yeah, I'm going to keep that at about 100. Actually, I don't need 100 levels of undo. Let me take it back. What am I thinking? Probably not even that, to be honest. I'm going to take it to 30 levels of undo. I mean, how many times do you need to undo or redo? All right, so because what that does is that stores all of those states in memory, so that'll free up memory. All right, so we look at the cache levels. It's very low right now. If I turn it all the way up here, what's going to happen is it's going to refresh very quickly. So if I'm painting, it's going to be super responsive. If I turn it all the way down, it's going to be sluggish when I'm painting. Another thing is smoothing up the top will affect painting. Turn smoothing all the way down if you want freehand. If you turn smoothing up, the brush will be slow, super laggy, but smooth. So let's look at this. So when we choose the Web UI, this is going to set this to here. If we hit default photos, notice what changes here. Under photos, now it goes to a bigger. So it's going to be redrawing bigger tiles, and it's going to be redrawing them more often because it's a cache level of 4. And the reason it's going to do that is because you're doing things on a larger scale now. You're usually working on larger images now. And, and you're moving sliders, different things like that. Then we choose huge dimension. The huge dimension is going to keep that cache size about there and turn our cache levels up to 6. So this is going to be really cranking. This is going to be cranking our GPU, which is our graphics processor. That's our graphics processing unit, which is here. Now, if you have redraw screen resolution issues, when things get blocky and weird and little bits of things are missing on the interface and things are not quite working right, what you want to do is choose advanced settings. And if we look under these advanced settings, we have things like 30-bit display. I can turn that off. I don't have a 30-bit display. Why do I have that on? And so what you can do is you can start to troubleshoot by turning on and off some of these features. You could turn off graphics processor altogether, and when you turn off graphics processor, test it, see if that problem is gone. If the problem's gone, you know it's the GPU, but you don't want to keep it off because, things like brush resize, dynamic, a lot of tools and features are not going to work without the GPU. So you want to have it on, but then you can go in and troubleshoot and turn off these options, OpenCL, whatever, one at a time until you can get it fixed, and also change this to basic drawing mode, and then just eliminate the issues. And that will fix a lot of your issues that are working. Okay, I said I was going to show you how performance works. Let's go down and we're going to look at how we can test the performance. So let me just make sure I can see myself on the screen. There I am. I'm not covering it up. Great. So go down the bottom here. There is a whole Swiss Army knife of tools under this arrow. If you didn't know that, I deserve a like for that. Thanks, guys. All right, so what we want to do now is we're going to go down to efficiency. How many of you have used efficiency before? Right now it says 100% efficiency. That means that my machine is optimized and running efficient, but we're not sure because we haven't done anything yet. How can I tell? If you look, see that little star? that little star means that it hasn't updated yet. So the last time it knew we were 100% efficient. Let's do some things and see if we're still efficient. So we're going to choose filter, blur. Let's do a radial blur because this is really hard on the system. Now we turn the amount all the way up. Let's make it a zoom and let's make it the best quality. Now we're going to click. We're doing something difficult. And look at this. We're still 100% efficient. So if you're at 100% or more efficiency, then maybe you can slack off on some of those other things. But that's what we're looking for, is how efficient. Let's resize this image because I've got a very powerful machine. In fact, I'll show you the preferences. You know what? I'm not, because you'll see my serial number. I don't know why people care about that, but I don't know. Everyone seems to care about that. So we're going to choose the image size, and what we're going to do is we'll make this 1,000%. So let's make it really huge. So I can tell you I have a multi-core device. It's actually, I think I can pop it up about this Mac on another screen. Okay, yeah. All right, yeah. So this is what my machine is. It's a 3.3 gigahertz, 12-core Intel Xeon W for workstation, 144 gigs of RAM. It's using an AMD Radeon Pro Vega 232 gigabyte. It's a beast of a machine. And then memory, it's configured. It's powerful. So things are going to be efficient. We're still 100%. But if I'm using my laptop or I'm using one of my older machines or maybe your machine, you're going to see a difference. So let's have a look. And now we've got this huge image. Let's click and see the image size just for fun. Document size here is 366 megabytes. Awesome. And let me just go back to, oh, by the way, scratch disk shows you how much. We're using 96 gigs of scratch disk. Remember that because I'm going to show you that in a second. We can do timing. That'll time how long it takes to do things. Good way for doing benchmarks. But efficiency, let's focus on that. So we're going to choose filter, noise. Let's put a little bit of noise in here to make it a little harder for it to filter. So we'll put some noise in there. Choose filter, blur. Yeah, let's do our radial blur once again. Now we're doing it on a much larger image. Best quality. Click OK. And now it's struggling a little bit. Look at that. Because this is a more difficult process for it. So it's taking a sec. I'll take your cast-off machine. Don't forget to slam the like button. You're right, Joe. Smash that like button into dust, guys, while we're waiting for this radial blur to happen. And by the way, guys, if you got any questions, just pop them in there and let me know. So, yeah, I've got a beast of a machine, right? So efficiency is 100%. But this is how you can test your efficiency, and that's how you know under the performance here, like, oh, maybe you need to give it more RAM. So, this is how you can test or play around with these cache levels and cache tile sizes for, the kind of work that you do. Now, I wish we could save preset groups, like preference groups or preference presets would be really nice. Maybe that's a good feature request for Adobe, because then, I could use a set of preferences when I'm working on photos versus, when I'm doing like huge panoramas or design work. All right, so we know that that's basically what we're getting here. So just click the one that you use the most, do the efficiency, and then tweak it if you need to. All right, scratch disk. Everybody asks about scratch disk, right? Like, what is a scratch disk and why do I need a scratch disk and how do I add a scratch disk? And this is why you need a scratch disk, because when I went on there, you saw the scratch disk was using 96 gigs. My main drive here has 171 gigs free. No problem. It's going to work fine. But what happens is if you run out of scratch disk, it's going to slow things down. And then what happens is when Photoshop runs out of RAM, random access memory, those little chips that you put in your computer, and those are the memory that it uses real time. Random access memory means it's not like real hard memory would be a hard drive or a disk. That's storage memory. Random access memory is flash. It refreshes, it overwrites itself all the time. So yeah, I mean, it's, yeah. And it's kind of like, some of the scratch disks, we use the SSD drives. Those are also flash memory, which is what RAM is basically. All right, so when it runs out, it starts using the drive. In this case, I have an SSD drive, so it's really fast. So if it runs out of RAM, it can use this. Now, what is recommended a lot is to use a dedicated scratch disk. I don't necessarily think you need a dedicated scratch disk. Just make sure you have another scratch disk that has lots of space on it. Mac 2 is a 1 terabyte NVMe drive that I put in, which is a solid state drive, SSD, but a bit faster. So I put this in my Mac, and it's 1 gig. And I can use that as my scratch disk. Now, a lot of the time you might turn it off here so it doesn't use your initial drive if you have more than one, and the other one is as fast. If your second drive is as fast as your startup drive, use that as a scratch disk, because then it's not dealing with fragmentation. It's not dealing with the operating system, because everything that's happening on my operating system and Photoshop is running, and it's going in there and it's creating little sectors on the drive, and that drive is working all the time. If you create a second drive as your scratch disk, it's not working unless you're writing to it or you're working in it. So that's how you can get performance increase. And of course, you can add a whole bunch. So basically what happens is if you turn all of these on, you can tell I like Lord of the Rings. There's my Thunder Bay, that's my RAID. Then essentially I'm going to have all this huge amount of scratch disk, and that's what Photoshop's going to use. But in this case, I don't want to do that. I want to use just the Mac 2. That would be better. And I'm going to pop here. See what I hit that arrow? So now it's going to use my drive, but it's going to use the Mac 2 first. So you can change the order of the scratch disk by clicking on these little arrows there. So, and that'll happen. Yeah, if you run out of scratch disk, you can't save a file, you can't run a filter. What you've got to do is go in and save. So if you've only got your primary drive set up as a scratch disk, you've got to literally delete files off your machine so that you can save a file or do a process. So if you can, have a secondary drive installed, and even if it's slow, set it as a secondary scratch disk. Just change the arrow or change its position. It goes from the top first, then the next one. And it wouldn't hurt to have a secondary scratch disk there, even if it's slow. And that'll be good for an emergency, so at least you can save that file and then clean up space on your computer, whatever you need to do. All right, so that's like one of the big things I wanted to show you guys there when we're working inside preferences. I could do a whole thing, but let's move ahead. Is this useful? Let me know, guys, in the chat here if this is useful stuff that you guys are enjoying and learning, because I know nobody goes through the preferences, or if I haven't seen anyone really dive deep into preferences before. I don't know if people do it. Maybe it doesn't get enough views on YouTube, but essentially, this is what we're doing here. All right, so I'm going to skip ahead to, once again, the exciting ones, units and rulers. We can change that. Control R, Command R will get rulers. Right click, you can change that. So some of these can be changed easily on the fly. We don't need to even worry about them here. So let's just go to the stuff that we care about. Useful, glad you guys are enjoying it. Thank you, Polkadot Studio. Okay, so then generator, this is if when you're creating stuff for the web and you're saving out files, whole different topic. We won't even touch on that. Filter galleries, we can do all that stuff. That will split filter gallery into filters. Let's just move in. Let's just move on right now. What did I want to show you? Oh, technology previews. So sometimes there's some cool new things inside Photoshop that Adobe's testing, or you can test. This is not officially being a beta tester, but if you go into technology previews, there's things in here that you might not be available. There's new features in here. You can oh, look at this, look at these new features, and it gives you oh, look at that, we can do that. Content aware trace. Oh, so you have to restart Photoshop, of course, but oh. So, sometimes there's things in there that you can play around with. Next one, we're moving down to product improvements. That thing when you first start up, would you like to send anonymous data to the FBI or, Adobe, whoever, and you turn that on and then it sends it and you change your mind later, just product improvement, turn it off. If you want to be a good citizen, turn it on and it will give anonymous data to Adobe. So basically anonymously they will know what tools you're running, what filters or whatever workflows, and it lets them know what are popular tools, filters. It enables them to prioritize things for bug fixes and also for features. I turn it off, I'm private. All right, so Anyway, guys, I hope that you're finding that useful. So any questions about preferences, drop it in there really quick because we've got 40 minutes and I got some really cool stuff I want to do this week on Fix My Photo, and actually going to combine some photos on there, but let me look for some just quick questions there, and I'm going to give it about 30 seconds. So while I'm waiting, because there's a delay, when I say this, it takes a while before this appears in the chat, so I want to give people time. So if you're new here, welcome to Photoshop Cafe. If you guys haven't hit that subscribe button yet, you'll see it in the bottom corner of this screen. Hit the subscribe and then you'll become a Photoshop Cafe subscriber. That means a little red button will appear next to us on the side when you're on YouTube when we're live, so you'll know when the live streams are happening. And also it will help you discover when I do new videos. If you turn on all the notifications, YouTube will let you know. And I do a tutorial every Tuesday. Every Thursday we do these live streams. Next Tuesday we are going to be doing next Tuesday, I've got one on quick mask, which is going to be absolute killer. I've got some quick mask tips you guys are going to love, and we'll be back next Thursday. It looks like your questions come in. What about using an EHD external hard drive as a scratch disk? I have them on my machine. I'm using some right now. I would use it for an emergency, but unless it's really fast, don't use it as a primary scratch disk. You can use it as a secondary scratch disk. Now, certain types of drives will work and certain types won't. It seems to me the type that you plug into the power, you know, the ones that mine are all plugged in and being used right now. No, actually, let me show you. So things like these, you know, that have an actual power plug on them. And also, let me just go to the camera here. Like these things like Drobos, Raids, the G Raids, different things like that, which I wish I could show you. They tend to work. You know, these kind of things, you know, they work. But then smaller drives, like these kind of drives that just plug in just directly to the USB, they don't usually show up as scratch disks. Don't quote me on that. I probably need to do more research, but that's what I've noticed. So Tracy asked a question. Oh, that was Tracy that asked that question. All right, great. So guys, I think, hang on. As you use scratch disks, they both occupy space permanently until deleted. They only take up temporary space, just like RAM. So it does not fill up the space on there. However, if you have a crash mid-Photoshop, you might have some things that you need to kind of clean up. And there's different cleanup utilities that can help you do that. And you can also Google and find out where Photoshop saves its temporary files. So, you know, I'm not going to do that. You can just Google that because depending on your Mac or Windows, it's going to be a different place. And then you can get rid of those temporary files. On the Windows, I believe they start with a tilde or a little squiggly mark. But once again, Google those specific steps so that you do it right. All right, so guys, I think it's time for Fix My Photo. And here we are, everybody's favorite segment, Fix My Photo, where I fix your photos. If you want me to fix your photos, and I say fix, sometimes I'm just going to filter them or just have fun with them. If you want me to play or experiment or try to do some things, sometimes we fix, sometimes we enhance. Upload your photos to fixmyphoto.net. Now, you don't have to do this live. You can do this anytime before next Thursday's live stream, and then, you know, I'll look at it like Thursday before I go live, or even live, we'll pop them up. So fixmyphoto.net, upload your photo there, put your name in the file name so I know it's you, so we can credit you, give you a shout out, all that fun stuff. You can bask in the glory and the prize of knowing that your photo was there. I don't actually give anybody any physical prizes for that. And essentially we just do that. Now upload a raw file if you can, because that's easier to work on. Maximum of 3 submissions per person per week. All right, guys, let's have a look and see what we've got this week. And Bruce is not there to say, dude, turn on the screen, so I'm going to turn on the screen myself. I do sometimes forget. All right, so we've got some cool stuff we're going to look at. Right now, I'm in Lightroom, and I've set up Lightroom to automatically just pull down these, because fixmyphoto.net goes to a Dropbox folder, and then people uploaded that Dropbox folder, and I have it mirrored on my computer, and then I set that up as a, what you call it, forget the name of it. What do you call it? The live folder. Anyway, so I have it set up as auto import. There we go. And I forget the name of the live folder. Why am I forgetting the name? Doesn't matter. But anyway, so when that goes into that folder, it automatically loads into Lightroom. So whenever I open Lightroom here, it's a watch folder. Thank you, watch folder. And then anything you guys upload is just, boom, it's going to appear here inside of a Lightroom. So I really like what Sandra, are you there? Sandra Lahai. Sandra Lahai, are you there? So I like what Sandra's uploaded here. She uploaded a couple of images. Beautiful images of this nice barn. Oh, there's a little sense of dust. I don't think that's what it is, but if you want to get rid of that, it's pretty easy. Don't use that. Use the actual spot tool. So go under develop, grab the spot tool, and just make sure that the brush is big enough, and just click. Why is that not working? Because I didn't use the spot tool. There we go. Boom. And that fixes it. Okay, we're not really doing that. But anyway, so this is, I like the exposure. It's not overexposed. And this is really good. It's okay if it looks a little bit dark. What you don't want to do is blow out your highlights. So these dark areas, very easy to make these lighter, to increase them. But very, very difficult to recover if blowing out highlights are gone. So this is good, good exposure there. But what we're going to do is something really fun. I'm going to take this other photo she gave us of this door. It's really funky and weird. I'm going to do my best to straighten this door and then put it on the other barn. Put it on the outside of the barn. So why don't we do that? So I'm going to select both of these, right click, and we're going to choose Edit into Photoshop 2021, and it'll open these in Photoshop. Dirt inside my camera. Oh boy, yeah, I am the king of sensor dust. All right, so what we want to do is try and straighten this. There's different ways we can do it. First way I'm going to try and do it is automatically. So why don't we have a look under here? We're going to choose Filter, Camera Raw Filter. If you're on CS6, you don't have this feature, so you're going to hit Control-T for Free Transform. Or you could do a crop. I'll show you how to do that in a sec. Even if this works, I'll show you how to do it with the crop. All right, so let's go down. How many of you are on CS6? And how many of you guys are on the latest version of Photoshop? Let me know. And by the way, my Tuesday tutorials are slow paced. All right, so what we're doing here is geometry. Click on automatic. It's not bad. It's better, but it's not perfect. Let's select this option here. And sometimes this will fix these. So if we look at this before, after, it's definitely better. But it's not perfect. Why is it like that? That's really funky. Interesting. All right, so I'm just going to click OK. And we can see. So here's another option. What happens if that doesn't work? Sometimes that's all you need to do. If it doesn't work, go under the crop tool. Hold down your mouse or your pen if you're on a Wacom and choose Perspective Crop Tool. Looks like everyone's on the latest. Can you move to the other side? Yeah, sure. I'd love to just move to the other side. There we go. I am now on the other side. So now you can see the tools. And that was just the channels and the layers showing, by the way. So what we're doing now with the Perspective Crop Tool is just click once on the corner, and then you'll get this thing that looks like gum on the bottom of your shoe. And just click it on the next one. Go to the next one here. And go to the next one. So what we're doing is just essentially setting these up. Now, if you want to be really good, zoom in, and I'm just holding the Alt or the Option key and using the scroll wheel. That's why I didn't turn that on. In Preferences, because I like to use the Alt or the Option. If you just want to use the scroll wheel, I showed you earlier on in Preferences, where you can just do that. And by the way, to move, hold down the spacebar, and it will enable you to move. Flick panning. Remember I mentioned it? That's what flick panning is. All right, great. So I'm just going to hit the Enter key to apply it, and yeah, sort of better. I can now go in here if I want to get super crazy with this. Let's just grab our polygon lasso tool. Let's select here. Let's grab the outside. Because it looks like we've got some other warping going on here. This is really interesting. I'm wondering if this thing was in a tornado or something. Alright, so we're selecting that. And then what we can do is, normally I'd copy this to a new layer, so I'll just do it. Control J, Command J, copies to a new layer. Control or Command T for free transform. Right click, and now we're going to choose the distort option. So with the distort option, we're just going to pull that up. And let's just force it to look about right. And let's go down the bottom here. And let's just, I'm making it a little bit bigger. So this is not going to be perfect, but I'm just kind of showing you guys what we're doing. And you could turn on the guides if you wanted. You know, so that would be, I don't think I can do it without applying that. I'll Control R, yes I can. And you could drag out some guides that are going to kind of help you. Control R, Command R for ruler. And it enables you to drag these guides out. And you could do this. If you want to get it perfect, this is how you would do it. And now we can see, okay, a little bit easier to follow. Those are looking good. Still a little funky at the bottom. So we're just going to apply this here. And then what you would probably do is just select the bottom independently. And here's the thing too, you can hit Control T and hit the distort in here. And I can just distort those bottom ones separately without, you know, applying it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that unless you copy it to a new layer though. So let's Control J first, and the reason for that is in case you want to blend things in. Right click, choose distort. Let's zoom in a little bit, and there we go. Now it's lined up, and to fix that we're just going to grab a layer mask. So let me disappear, show you guys the desktop. Grab a layer mask, grab your brush, and what we're going to do is on that mask, we're going to paint with black. Let's grab the B for brush tool, and make sure everything's turned up to 100, go down, and then we can just kind of blend these edges in. Look, see? There's different ways of doing this. Content aware fill is another way of doing it. There's so many ways we could have done this, but right now we're doing it this way because this is the way we're choosing. There's no particular reason why I did it this way. It's just you got to do everything one way or another in Photoshop. All right, so let's view, get rid of these guides. Let's clear the guides, and you know what? That's definitely better than it was. It's good enough for rock and roll. All right, so we've got this here. Now I can make adjustments. Let's go into the filter. Let's go back to the camera raw filter really quick. And I want to fix the exposure. Let's increase that exposure. Let's pop down the highlights a little bit. Open up the shadows. I'm not going to give it texture just yet. And just click OK to apply it. So we just quickly cleaned that up. Now, what we're going to do is... Oh, and this Orcapest. Hello. Just clicked Orcapest. Thank you for sharing these photos. I didn't realize it was you. I mean, Sandra. I mean, we now know Orcapest is Sandra. All right, so I'm going to drag this document and I'm going to drag this into the other document here. And now we've got this sitting on a layer. Now, if you guys remember, I think it was last week we used vanishing point. We're going to do this again today. So we're going to hit Control A to select everything. Control C will copy it. And, you know, or we could just Control click on that layer to select it and choose the edit copy if you can't remember the keyboard shortcut. Now it's in memory. It's stored in memory, so we can turn it off. Control D, turn off the deselection, you know, D for deselect. And right now we're just looking at our photo, but we've got that little segment is in memory, ready for us to paste whenever we want. So let's choose the background and create a new layer. Now, with the new layer, the daughter Narnia, yeah, there we go. So we'll grab that layer, and now what we're going to do is we're going to choose the filter. We're going to go down to vanishing point. Now, what we want to do is just click on the four corners here. And so Sandra or Capest, where did you shoot this? It's a great photo, really interesting spot. So what I'm doing here is I'm drawing this, and what it does is it says, hey, this is the perspective of this wall that we're working on. This is the angle. If you wanted to add additional ones, you could. You just click on the tool here, and we could set up another one for a different area. And I'm just going there on the straight lines to try and get it, because, you know, obviously that's a little tricky. And then you can just kind of drag it out when you're done. Actually, that's not going to work. Let me go down here. So I'm guessing the angle on this one. And if it's not right, you know, just change it. So what you want to do, though, is you want to look for a vertical line on there. There's one, sort of. Okay, so I'm sort of seeing a vertical line there. Okay, and I'm trying to find the angle. And then when you've done that, just grab the side, pull it up. So we're setting these you know, different surfaces. Okay, so let's click away. I'm going to work with this one. Control V, Command V for paste. And now we can do this with heel on or heel off. Let's see what happens when I do heel on. It's going to kind of blend in. I probably didn't want to do that yet. Yeah, see, that's what I'll do. Ooh, now it really looks like Chronicles of Narnia. I'm going to turn that off for now, though. And let's just drag it into here. Notice it snaps into position. And that's what we want. Now we want to scale it. Grab that little tool there, and we can scale this. So let's move it up. And I'm just randomly just dragging it until I can get it so I can see the whole thing. And then we'll look for perspective. I mean, it's in perspective now, but I mean, you know what I mean. Size, shape. There we go. All right, so we're copying this, and we're getting there, and man, this is a tall window. Tall door. There we go. I don't know if you would put the door in the middle of here, but hey, why not? So now we can change the shape of it and see how it's kind of fitting into that shape. Now, before you commit it by applying here, we have some options here. We can flip it, which means it goes the other way. We can flop it, which means it'll go upside down, which is going to be weird. So why don't we examine this? Where's the light coming from? The light's coming from the right-hand side, I can see, because that shadow's going there. Can we see a shadow on this door? Yes, looks like the light is in the right direction, so we don't need to do that. Let's go back to the Move tool. And we're just going in here, these different options here. There we go. So I'm selecting that option here, and if I change this to luminance, notice it will heal or blend in with the luminance, or we can turn it here and it will blend in as well. The other way will not blend in at all. And then if we just choose that, we can apply it, and yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. So there's our door. If I want to copy, hold down the Alt or the Option key, and I can drag out a copy. And if I want to make that one a little bit bigger, I could. If I want to change it, I'll make it smaller. Why don't we make it, you know, one for the little dog, if they happen to have a dog. And we're good. Click OK to apply it, and boom, we've added these little doors to that building. So that's essentially how we would do that. All right, guys, so if you're having fun, I've got one more I'm going to do. Do me a favor and hit that like button, because right now we're at 96 likes and we have 250 people watching. So that means 150 people have not hit that like button. So hit that like button, and helps us with the algorithm. And what I'm going to do is we're going to work on these rooms from Bianca Dupont. Bianca Dupont. And I'm going to select them. And by the way, if you guys want to see the before and afters of what I do here on Live from Lockdown. Now, number one, if I do your photo, go to photoshopcafe.com, click on the contact information. There's a contact link. send me your email address and I will email you the photo if you want it, the after photo. And if it's yours, of course, not for everybody, because I respect the privacy. So no, I'm not sharing your photos. I'm not going to give your photo to anybody but you. And also check out our Instagram at photoshopCAFE. If you guys haven't followed me on Instagram, do me a favor, go there and follow me. Because what I do is I also post the before and after from Live from Lockdown on Instagram, so you guys can view them as well. All right, you got it, Orcapest. Thank you for sharing that photo. That was very kind of you. All right, so we're going to open these two photos in Photoshop. So we're going to choose Edit and Photoshop 2021. So these are cool looking photos, and I don't know where you were going with this. I think that dog is really cool, but I have a feeling you want me to swap the sky. If not, we're going to do it. We're going to put this sky into this image. These skies. Oh, sorry, that was a dad joke. Okay, so let's go into here. Camera raw filter, and I just want to give this a little bit of a punch. Clarity, give it a little boost. Dehaze works well with clouds. Let's give it a little punch of exposure. Pull these highlights back. And maybe open up the shadows a little bit. So what I'm doing is I'm just giving it a little boost. Color, does that do anything? Let's not do too much changes in the color. And we're going to click OK here. You're welcome. Alright, so now I want to take this sky and I'm going to drop it in. So, you guys all know we have the sky feature, right? So I could save this out and I could load it into a sky and use sky replacement. That's something we're doing. There's another thing we can do here. If we go under select, and this is not straight by the way, but it's good enough. Let me just do something quickly. Filter, let's do camera raw filter because it's annoying me. This poor dog. Let's pull him out of the shadows a little bit, or her. Alright, good. That's better. So one of the options we have here is if we choose select. I don't know if you guys knew, but when they dropped in replace sky, got so much attention that people didn't even know there was a sky select option was added in here. So I'm going to Control J, Command J copies that to a new layer. So that's the sky. So if I take this sky, I drag this in to the other document, hold down the Shift key, it'll drop it in the middle. I can position it. Now, if I want to put it in where the other sky is, hold down the Alt Option key, go between these two, click, and that will clip it in there. And it's not great, but it's there. Control T for free transform. And if you just want the sky, we could go this way. All right, so it's still looking weird on the horizon. Fortunately, when you look at the horizon, a lot of the time the horizon has haze. So we can put a little haze in here. So I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to drag it underneath the other layer. Actually, just drag it in here. So now it's above. And what I want to do is create a little bit of haze. So to do this, we're going to grab our gradient tool. Let's set the foreground color to white. And then we're going to use transparent to white. And then we just drag up and that creates our horizon. Bring it down, blend it in, whatever. And voila! We didn't have to worry about that. Now, we could have used sky replacement. I've shown you guys sky replacement before. But someone's asking, what about the foreground color, Colin? The foreground color is not matching. Okay, let's do that. So we're going to select the foreground color, or the foreground, which is background. And then we're going to choose Image, Adjustments, and there's a little tool here called Match Color. Now, we're not doing a smart object because match color does not work on a smart object. So, with match color open, we want to make sure we're using the same source, which is Bianca DuPont 609 ARW. 609W. Wow, look at that. 6969. What was the chances of that? Similar file names. All right, so let's use this. So we're now looking at the same document. You can see it there. Haha. So we're working in the same document, and now we want to choose the layer. The layer I want to use is the one with the color, which is layer 2. So if we select layer 2, say, hey, we're going to grab the color from layer 2, and look at this. It's already starting to work. 3 settings. Is intensity, it's basically, here's a level slider, how much do we want to do? Let me just keep it simple. How much do you want to do saturation and darkness? So why don't we start here with the fade? We'll bring it down to about where it starts to match what's there. A little more. Color intensity. This means we get more or less color applied. See? Less, more. So let's put a little more color in there. And once again, fade, just think of that as a volume control. And then we can make it lighter or darker. So if we want to make it lighter, we go this way. If we want to make it darker, we go this way. And by the way, see, that's the slowness you're waiting there. That's caching. So when you change your cache levels, you can speed or slow that down like we were doing earlier on. I think that's looking pretty close. Let's play around with fade. Now, what does neutralize do? Why does neutralize exist? Neutralize is really good for getting rid of color cast. It's a one-trick pony. You click on it, and boom, it gets rid of the color cast. That's what neutralize does. All right, so we want to add the color cast here. Click OK, and we've kind of mixed it in. You know, it's still not straight, but Control-T, you know, we know how to straighten a photo. We just crop it. All right, guys. So that was us for this. Does anyone ever use neutralize function? There we go. David was just asking that. Yep, we know the horizon's not straight. We can easily fix that, but we're just not going to bother. Well, why don't I? I'll show you. There's so many ways we can straighten the horizon. One of them is just to use the crop tool. And we use straighten and just drag it along the horizon here. Boom. And let me clear that so we don't get a weird setting, because right now it's setting this to a 16:9 ratio. There we go. Hit enter. And, oh, I see what happened. All right, so don't set this to width, height, and resolution at 1 pixel. Just clear everything. That was funny. So that actually cropped that down to 1 pixel. Okay, so we're under our crop tool again. Grab the straighten, click and drag now. It'll give us that. Hit enter to apply it. And with those settings fixed, we've straightened it. All right, guys. So, and it is, you know, sky replacement works really well, but if you want to do it manually, that's how you do it manually. So anyway, guys, get your, where are we at for likes here? 115 likes with 250 people. Come on, guys. More likes, more likes. And also, if you haven't yet subscribed, subscribe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this out in just a second. But if you've got any questions, hold your questions. We'll do a very quick afterglow, probably more of a Q&A session, just because today I've got a meeting I've got to do in a little bit. So what I'm going to do is get your questions ready, but don't post them yet. Just think about them, and I'm just going to close this out for people who got to go. So for those of you who've joined us, thank you for joining us here on Live from Lockdown. We're here at every Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. We'll be back next week. If you haven't yet subscribed, hit the subscribe button. If you're watching the replay, also subscribe, and thanks for watching. Drop a comment underneath in the replay. And if you like this or you learned anything new, hit that like button. And until next time, I'll see you at the cafe. And all right, guys, I am back. And I know some people have got to go, so what we do is give people about a minute to say see you later. And for those of you who want to hang out for questions and answers, get ready for your questions and answers, but don't post them yet, because everybody's like, thanks and see ya, and your question will get lost. So just save it for a second. Ralph Nelson, good to see you, man. How are you? It's been a while here. Hopefully I didn't miss you. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you hit it only once. Yes, so Ralph was toggling the like button on and off. You want to just click it once and you'll see. Same with subscribe. You can't subscribe more than once. So you guys, you got it. Klaus, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Dave Holstock, good to see you, man. John Oswald, you're welcome. You're welcome. Ken, Jerry Powell, good to see you. You have to leave. That's okay. I've got to leave too. Pigeon River, good to see you. So many regulars here. Actually, I think pretty much everyone here is a regular. Not too many names I don't recognize. So good to see you. Cameron, good to see you. And Jeffrey, Cheryl, good to see you. Cheryl is a reg. Joey, good to see you. Thanks. See you guys later. You like the light blue behind me. Oh, thank you, Ray. I can change the color of it. It's one of those LED lights. So check this out. I can choose different colors. Oh, I just changed the intensity. Let's change the color. Look at this. It can go green for St. Patrick's Day. Yellow. Yeah, so it's an RGB light. I'm going to do a review. They actually sent it to me to do a review on it. It's called Pixel K80. And eventually I'll get a review on those. All right, guys. So, questions here. Oh, thanks. You're welcome. Thank you, Russ. See you next week, Chris. You got it, Hannah. Thank you. And hi to Switzerland for Federico. I'm saying it wrong. Federico. Is that Italian? French? I know you're in Switzerland, but could be Swiss French, Swiss Italian. Greetings from Poland. Good to see you. And your name is even harder to say. Whoa, we'll check. We'll see it. Yeah. Love the purple. All right, Susan. Hey, Insane. Good to see you. Okapest. Italian, probably. All right. So, all right, guys. Nice. Thanks again. If you got a question, drop that question there. So I guessed it. Swiss Italian. All right. There's three, right? Italian, German, and French are the three main Swiss, I believe. Swiss Italian, Swiss French, Swiss German. You got to say Swiss first. All right, nice. You got a mistake? Watch again later. Updated PS today. Announces unknown GPU. Yikes. Yeah, how do you reconnect? I don't know. Okay, I don't know if you're on Mac or Windows. Guessing you're probably on Windows. I don't know, maybe a Mac. But what you want to do is see if there's an updated driver for your GPU or your graphics processor. So go under the settings, under your display settings, find your settings for your graphics driver. Your GPU is a video card, essentially. And see if there's an updated driver. That's the first thing I would do. Update that driver, because Adobe could have developed the latest update. And when they develop the update, they're going to be working with the latest driver. So maybe your old driver doesn't support the update yet. Update your video driver, and hopefully that helps. All right. See you, Russ. Good to see you this week. And I'm just going to give a few more seconds there if anybody's got any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to get out of here because I have a meeting in 20 minutes and I'm going to try and eat some lunch first. So thanks. Thanks, Tracy. Thanks, John. Thanks for submitting your photo. Mark is the M1 Mac Mini. Loving it. I've got the M1 MacBook Pro. I love it too. It's great. Do I have videos on crop mask? Crop mask. You mean like when I go to crop and then I change the settings in the mask here to make it change the opacity so it shows the background? Is that what we're referring to? That's what I would do. Or are you working in a mask, a layer mask, and you're wanting to crop it? So essentially, is that? So just if you don't mind, just expanding on that. Sorry, wrong name. All right. So I'm not quite sure what are you talking about. Mask? If you're talking about layer masking or working or using a mask to cut things out, yes, I do. Look up the layer masks. You can see it on the YouTube channel. If you just go to YouTube, photoshopCAFE, and then let me show you this. This is kind of interesting. So if you're in the photoshopCAFE channel, when you're in that channel, you can search. Now, you don't want to be searching there. You want to make sure, first of all, you click on my channel. And then when you're in the channel, now you can search in here. And that will search my videos. Don't search up here because that will search the whole of YouTube. But if you go in here and then you type in mask and then hit enter, it will show the videos, and these are the videos I've done on layer masks. There's one for beginners, there's more advanced ones, and that's how you can find my tutorials there on YouTube. So hopefully that helps you. And if not, photoshopcafe.com. Oh, by the way, guys, a lot of these tutorials are on photoshopcafe.com, and also because I know some of you only go on photoshopcafe.com and some of you probably only go on YouTube. But if you go in here, for example, this week's tutorial where we did the background blur with the field blur, which is kind of fun. If you click on the tutorial, not every time, but most of the time, I also have written steps. So if you look in here, you can see there's some extra tips, and the written steps are in here, and the videos at top. So you can watch the video here, and you can also get the written steps. So there's a search under there, so you can click on the search, type in mask as well. So that's where you can find all my free tutorials on YouTube and Photoshop Cafe. All right, got it. So hopefully that helps. When you save in a JPEG, can you clarify the dialog format option? Base, optimized, progressive. Which one should we select? Okay, so we're choosing file save as. Most of the time I actually don't. I choose export save for web. And then under web, I choose JPEG, and the options are here. So optimize is just literally just going to show you what it looks like. Optimized, it's going to make the file smaller. Progressive is something you're not even going to do. That's an old thing left over from the web where things would load interlaced almost like, so it would, instead of loading all at once, it will progressively load. Speeds up load time on the web. So it starts off looking crappy, and then it gets a little bit better, then a little bit better. So not really the lines, but sometimes it redraws in lines. So it's really pixely and slowly gets better. But I wouldn't even do that because everything's fast enough to not do that anymore. Quality, if you go to 100% quality, it's going to be perfect, but it's going to be really huge. And if you go to 0, it's going to see how it's all blocky and ugly. But it's going to be really small and load fast, and you can see the file size somewhere on the screen, 56K, so it's 48K right there. 48K, turn it all the way up, it's going to be 2.5 megs. So I suggest going around about 75 and have a look at it. And so you can see on this optimize, you can do 2 ups. You can look at it optimize next to the other one. And the reason the colors are different is because that's converting it to sRGB. Yeah, so that'll change it. Don't worry about that for now. Just look at the quality and see, are we losing quality? So usually around about 75%, you're not going to visibly see a difference, but the file size is going to be humongously different. This is as an optimized. We can see the file size. Look at that, 900K versus 2.5 megs when we were all the way up. I could take this down to 73, 74, still looks the same, and now it's 800K. So that's what those settings do. You want to get it as small as you can if you're going to be putting it on the web or social media. If you don't compress it, Facebook and stuff will compress it more. But usually if I'm going to social media, I don't want to go below 75 or 80 because the Facebook compression on top of that will kill it. If you're sending it out for printing, and it's not going to the web, then go to 80% or even 85%. Some people even tell you go 100% if you're sending it out to like Bay Photo or whatever for printing. That's fine because you're not worried about file size. What about for printing a JPEG to upload? I think that I answered that question, right? If you're going to upload it to social media, do about 75 to 80%. And then let the social media crunch it more. Don't try to fully optimize it. If you're uploading it to your own website, then about 75 will work pretty good. Don't miss my lunch. All right, since Bruce is not with you, I'll remind you, you will be late. Thank you, Hannah, and thank you, Ray, for caring about my stomach, because I sure do. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this week, episode number 52. Thank you for joining me, and I hope this has brought a little bit of warmth and comfort into your lockdown. I know some people are still in lockdown, some people are opening up, some people are locking down again. Here we are in this crazy thing. Be safe, guys. When you're around other people, wear a mask, even if you're vaccinated, because, you don't know. If you were carrying asymptomatically or somebody else is carrying a new strain that your vaccine doesn't protect you against, whatever. Just be careful. That's all I'm saying. And until next week, I'll see you guys at the cafe. See ya.